Hi, this is Sue Greenwell with the Empowered Light Holistic Expo. Our next expo is coming right around the corner, September 6th through 8th. I'm here today with John DeSouza. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm great, Sue. So nice to be here with you today. I'm so psyched for the expo coming up and for all the stuff that we're going to be talking about and presenting to people, all the important things that they need to know about. It's so very important for them.
Excellent. For those of you that don't know, John DeSouza was a former FBI investigator. His specialty is the paranormal cases. He's written several books, and his slogan or tagline is the X-Man. Many of his cases were integrated into the X-Files show that was in the 90s. And John has written three great books, which I have been reading. The Para Investigators. I don't know if I've got this upside down or
No,
not.
it's right.
Okay, cool. Extra Dimensionals and Clear Hearers, all fabulous books with fabulous stories and case studies, and of course the documentation part of it as well. But I really love hearing the stories. So welcome, John. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much, Sue. I'm so happy to be here with you. And yeah, the stories are, it's the most important thing, the stories that we tell each other, the things that we tell each other about that people, that people connect with. And one of the one of the very important stories that's coming up is uh, is a date, October 14th, October 14th, 1943. October 14th, 1943. That is the date of something called the final day of Sobibor death camp in Poland. In Poland, it is a date at the anniversary of the final day when the only time in history when an entire concentration camp population escaped from a Nazi concentration camp. I mean, not just one or two, but everybody together, working together, they all escaped from a Nazi concentration camp. And it happened in Sobibor, Poland, where the Nazis had about 600 prisoners in a concentration camp. And it is an amazing story because these were all, of course, these were all Jews. They were Polish Jews, and they were men, women, children. They were religious Jews, and they were uh, oh, there were even Soviets. There were even a few Soviet soldiers who ended up in there who happened to be Jewish as well, and they all ended up in this concentration camp. And they made a plan to escape, and they had to kill all the Nazi officers first. And it was an amazing plan because the first tenet of Jewish law is you shall not murder. You shall not murder, shall not kill. That's the first tenet of Talmudic law. And so they all had to get over this kind of bump in their consciousness in order to do this because they had to kill all the Nazi officers before that last day, October 14th, 1943. And so they had to do it. They did it. And then they got together for roll call. They were called into roll call in the middle of the camp. And they all had a plan to charge, to have the fences undone by their snipers. They had broken into the armory, collected all the guns as well. They're young men, and then they were going to release the fences, and they were all going to charge out of there after they killed the snipers. Well, the plan got kind of screwed up. One of the leaders was actually a rabbi, a former a rabbinical student, and this is a great movie was made of this in I think it was 1987, with Alan Arkin and also this great blonde actor who recently he just died. He just died like a couple of weeks ago, and his name is escaping me right now. But Alan Arkin played the rabbi who was one of the big leaders. And the plan, they're all in roll call and they're waiting for the fences to be undone through the people. And something went wrong. People, some of the women in the group are collapsing. They're collapsing. And this movie is called Escape from Sobibor. Everyone has to go look at the last 20 minutes of this movie, made in 1987. And it's amazing, amazing, amazing movie. And then it just starts falling apart. And Alan Arkin has to go ahead and announce everyone has to go. So the rabbi gets up and he says, and he just gives a short speech. He says, everyone, this is our moment. The officers have been killed. We must charge forward out of this camp. Everyone, those of you who survive, let people know what happened here. Let everyone know what happened here in this place. And God is with you. Everyone, go forward now. Go. And they all, 600 people, men, women, children, rabbis, soldiers, workers, they all charged forward and they charged those fences. And just with human weight, they were able to knock down these fences, the barbed wire, and then they went out into a minefield that covered this area. And some of them blew up and the machine gun nests were not taken care of. And some of them were gunned down. And 150 of them out of 600 were killed on the way out of this camp. And it's amazing in the movie how they portray it. It's Escape from Sobibor with Alan Arkin. It's amazing how they portray it. The joy of them, like even under fire, even under these incredible conditions, there's just this incredible joy that you see in them just charging out of this camp for their freedom, trying to go for the forests. And, and a lot of them did escape, did get out of there and actually survived the war and were liberated, about less than a year later by the Allied forces. Anyway, I started thinking about this story. It's an amazing story because those people who escaped from Sobibor, who did actually survive, every year, many of them are Israel. They're in Russia. They're in Russia, but they get together. They come back to Sobibor, where there's a monument that shows a Polish Jewish woman being shot in the back as she's running. And that's the statue that they created in Sobibor. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. And every year, October 14th, from 1943, they all get together and they come back to Sobibor to pay homage. And all of the survivors, they all became famous Nazi hunters. And they went all over the world, South America, Argentina, Brazil. They worked with Israel and they hunted down all of these people. It's amazing, amazing. Even the after story is amazing. So anyway, this story became very important to me recently because my presentation that I'm going to give at the Expo is basically it's about the becoming a para-investigator and the globalist terror that we are living through right now. It's this age. It's the globalist concentration camp that they have us in, this artificial prison that they have us in right now, and where we are, and we don't even know that we're being tortured and murdered also. This is this age in the future. I predict that this age we're living through right now will become known as the age of globalist terror against the Western world, because that's what we're living through right now. We're just not allowed to see it because of the mainstream media so tightly controlled, and we're not allowed to know that we're being killed and we're being persecuted and we're being imprisoned. with this, all of these things that are going on. And it's the things that we see, but we're told there's something else, like the mass shootings that are going on, that are being directed against us by these globalist forces that have these brain numbed pharmacological, I don't know a good way to say that, pharmacy induced crazies that are sent out purposefully to kill us in these mass shootings and to murder us. And yet the political system that's set up by the globalist powers, the same powers that send out these shooters to kill us, the political system tells us that this is not a pharmacological event, that this has nothing to do with big pharma, and that this is really an issue of guns, somehow. It has something to do with guns.
Or to take the guns away from the common man, so there's no deal.
Right, right. Which is incredibly bizarre, but the globalists have plenty more bizarre things that they make people believe and that people accept. So we are the prisoners, all of us, escaping from Sobibor. We are the modern day prisoners escaping from Sobibor. Every time that we talk to even one other person, and this is true for everyone that's at these presentations, that's at these places like the expos, every single person there has tried to talk to someone, to wake someone up, to relay this information to somebody, that these things are not what they are told, that we're told they are. That the news is actually fake. 100% of the news is actually fake, because it's not there to inform us. It is there to disinform us and to make us believe other things are true. And so we are, every time that we try to even talk to one person, and tell them these things are fake, these things aren't real, don't believe these things, and really research this stuff for yourself and find out for yourself. Then in that moment, we are in that joy of the escape from the system that is keeping us in prison so tightly.
Agreed. One of the things Corey Good said a few years ago, I asked him, what the biggest form of mind control, and he said it's peer pressure, it's our programming. He said we're basically what we'd call the free range humans. Okay, so we get to run around the planet. We think we're free. We're told that we're free. We're told that we live in a free country, right? But look around. Do we really? Look what's happening with even basic things. Airline travel, for example. More and more and more and more controls, and and we're just standing in line like sheep and letting it happen. And so we swallow the news, we swallow the programming. And like you said in your presentation last April, there's 3 legs to it. We've got the media, that's corrupt, and of course disinforming us, misinforming us. And most people don't even read past a headline anymore. We're on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. We say, okay, Trump did this. Trump has poisoned every animal on planet Earth. Oh, we don't even read the article. We don't even know if the picture associated is really what the article says.
Right.
And we share it around, and then we're all angry. But we know that the news is corrupt, and we certainly believe that the government is corrupt, right? I don't think anyone would ever agree that the government is not corrupt or not there for their own interests. And like you said during the presentation, that 3rd leg is the scientific studies. And that is the eye-opener, because we're in school, we are mandated to go to school, right? And learn the party line, all right? And learn what the science and the mathematicians have to say, and learn it their way, when we now know that that is not the truth of what's happening. It's a big shock.
Exactly. And the other thing that people have to realize is that in all alternative communities, the deep state, the cabal is so powerful that in all alternative communities, they have their agents working always. And that's because it's very important to them to keep us controlled.
Right.
And so, speaking of Corey Good and other controversial figures, you have all these figures who believe it's their business somehow to denounce other people in the community and to say, oh, this guy's fake, this guy's a fraud, this other guy's not. When that's precisely the opposite of what we should be doing. We shouldn't be, if you have truth to present, then you should present it. But we're not supposed to be tearing down other people in the community, whatever it is. There's no upside to that. There's no interest in that unless you're being paid to do that sort of thing. Then that's something completely different. And I know for a fact that there are people who are compensated for tearing down others in the community, because otherwise they have no interest in it. There's no reward in it for them. And that's why when we see that, it really exposes those people as working for somebody else. They're working for somebody else. They're not working for us. They're not working for the community. So it's very important to realize, and that's why I try to teach people to become true investigators and how to be true investigators, to be able to look at clues, look at motivations, build profiles of characters so that you can see what's really going on, because a lot of people just get manipulated and they just follow whatever they hear. But you have to do your own research. You have to do your own investigation into figures, whether you think they're genuine or whether you think they're not. And it's something that will lead you to the truth every single time. It's very important to do for yourself.
It's a very interesting study, and I know you're going to be talking on, it's Sunday at 1, you're going to be talking about the para-investigators, like basically how to get to the real truth. And I always teach people it's really a discernment. Many times we're so stimulated by the outside world, what's going on in social media, our phone, the news, that we're running around like chickens without really seeing or thinking, is there a deeper meaning to what's happening? Like, who would have profited from this event or whatever? But so you're going to be teaching people really how to look for these clues. I know I'm kind of we'll call it a buzzkill, because every movie I look at or every TV show or whatever, I look for signs, and they are there growing like crazy. So you've got this deep state controlling the movies, let's say. And of course we have a lot of violence in there, but we have a lot of negative symbolism. And like it seems like Hollywood is being controlled. Of course, the music industry is being controlled. It's like you can't listen to even a song without supporting a negative agenda. So it's kind of not the best ever place, but it's good to be awakened and to see those clues for what they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, and this is why very few investigators, very few police, even FBI agents, even are actual true investigators, because it's really hard it's a difficult skill to learn, and it's difficult to do because a lot of it just comes with knowledge, skills, and experience over time. Because the most key thing is to look at a situation, and also being a para-investigator helps someone who can actually use the senses that are beyond the physical in order to inform their abilities to investigate. And so the hardest part is to look at clues, connect clues, but then also have an eye for the most dispositive, what we call dispositive clues. Dispositive clues are the ones that stick out way higher than the other clues, because they could actually conclude the investigation in one way or another because they're so outstanding. That's a dispositive clue. And so those are the ones that we really need to look for. And I can give you an example with a quick exercise here. And the exercise is this. Look at something that is completely, we can look at something that's completely outside of the purview of exopolitics. Let's look at we can look at the Democratic field of candidates for the president. Look at that, and you'll notice a couple of things. If you just don't be political, just look at it as an investigator, and look at this field of Democratic candidates for president. Something should jump out at you right away, and it leads to a prediction that's pretty wild, and that I'm going to make here and put it on the record here so people can see it later. And it's that this is the weakest, most bizarre field of candidates for Democrat nomination of president that anyone has ever remembered seeing. There's never been a group of candidates that are so unfit for any elected office. Forget about even the presidency. It's just, and it really jumps out at you, even people who are actual political Democrat people. It really jumps out at them because it's really bizarre, almost as if it's been planned that way. It's almost like you couldn't actually have a field of such weak, ineffective, candidates unless you actually planned it that way, unless you planned to make it that way. It's just not even possible to have such. So now that's a huge, huge clue that something's going on, something greater is going on. Right. And then you look at another clue. The field of candidates is being led by the most unelectable, unfit person I've ever seen. That's Joe Biden. Joe Biden, the president for Obama. But then, so you look at that, this is a guy that they actually have on video, many videos, groping women and children. Groping women and children. And this is not a secret. These are public videos that anybody can see, pictures and videos. And the guy, and those videos are everywhere. This guy is not a serious candidate, not at all. And yet he is leading the field of unelectable candidates that are basically there for the Democrats. So then that leads you to another clue that there's a larger plan going on here, because this is crazy. It's crazy, especially at a time when they're facing a very formidable incumbent president. It doesn't make sense unless you keep going with your investigation. And you think, what is causing this? What is causing this? And then you look at something else. You find something else. If you keep investigating, you look at, well, there's something really weird. There's something else really weird about Joe Biden, the number one leading this field of unelectable candidates, the number one unelectable. And that is that the president that was serving with Biden has not endorsed him for the presidency. This is something that all the mainstream media is not allowed to ask about. Not a single one. And they're with Biden all the time. And they have not been allowed to say one word about this incredible dispositive clue that is standing above all other clues. Obama has not endorsed his own vice president that he had for, 8 years, I guess, for 8 years, and he has not endorsed him for president. This has never happened in America.
Major. That's major.
It's more than major. It's never happened before in American U.S. history that a president has not endorsed his vice president for the presidency when he was running. It has never happened before. So that means something even more, because it's a dispositive clue. And the fact that no media is allowed ask about it. They're not allowed to ask Obama. They're not allowed to ask Biden about it either. And why? Why are they not being? It's because it really means something. So putting all these clues together, it leads me to the inescapable conclusion that the cabal actually has someone else that they want to run for the presidency once this field has been disposed of, as they will be, because they're just sacrificial lambs there. That's all they are. All of them are. They're just there to be cannon fodder, to absorb a lot of the ammunition from Trump, which Trump is too smart to actually fire at them because he knows they're just going to fall apart of their own.
Right.
So they have another candidate that they want to bring forward once this nonsense is over with. And because of the lack of the endorsement, it connects to this other clue. These connect and leads me to the inescapable conclusion that Michelle Obama is going to be the real candidate that they want to put forward to actually try to win against Donald Trump for the presidency.
I have also seen that out there, and what I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but the application was denied because she didn't.
What's that? What application?
She applied to run for president, and basically the application was denied on one of the points. And I think it was because she wasn't a citizen long enough or something like that. I don't remember what the point was right now. She was a few years of being a U.S. citizen for a certain number of, like you have to live in the country a certain number of years.
Yeah, that's one of the necessary steps in her running for president, because right now they're still in the disinfo step where she is actually issuing statements right now. And there's famous people right now that are demanding that she run for president. Michael Moore just made that announcement the other day. I think Oprah is talking about it too. And now she's making statements that she would never run for president. No matter what, she won't run for president, and she will not. And what you just talked about is another part of that disinfo campaign. That disinfo campaign is another necessary step in getting her to this point where they are going to run her.
Whatever I read, I never believe, because I don't know how to prove or disprove that fact. But let's just say she does run, and wouldn't it be interesting if she won? Which I don't think that's going to happen, but wait till the public hears all those details. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely, and also I've been corroborated with my my investigation point of view by other investigators, some of who are interested in politics and some of who are not, and they've come to the same conclusion that this is all a theater. Right. The whole Democratic side of this is a theater to get Michelle Obama to be the candidate later on and bring her forward as the candidate because there's just no other conclusion you can come to. Even when and another clue on that front is that even there's a couple of moderate candidates that are probably electable on the Democratic side. A couple of them. One is like Tulsi Gabbard. She's a female congresswoman, I guess. And the other one is Andrew Yang, who was some. And whenever they start talking or getting traction, the entire mainstream media attacks them and pounds them down. And that's a signal that this is a concerted theater. This is all concerted theater because they want to only push forward the unelectable people because they know they're not going to get anywhere. The Bernie Sanders, the Joe Biden, all the unelectables. This is really a party of the unelectables at this point. And so if any of the electables start getting any traction, they immediately attack them and pound them into the ground. uniformly. Everybody does. All the mainstream media does. So that shows that this plan is working. It's working and it's moving forward, because they don't feel that they have any chance unless they have Michelle Obama as the candidate, and they will. And they will have her, and you're going to see all of Hollywood and all of the usual suspects. The same thing they tried to do with Hillary. Basically, they're going to, not really the people. This is the people they don't care about, but just all of these Hollywood assets coming forward and just celebrating this candidate and as the great savior and just being a wonderful person, and that's going to be their whole deal to move forward to try to win the presidency. That's all they've got.
Well, and so basically, to summarize everything you said, we all know that there is so much going on behind the scenes. Like, we're given headlines and news over and over and over, but I feel like everything, and this is the way it's been, we're showing this while all this stuff is going on in the background. And
Right.
so we don't really know what the big picture really looks like. Like, I know that there's a very big, it's basically the war for Earth going on right now. And most people don't even realize it's going on. They're so distracted with their cell phones and their life,
Right. And in every great revolution, every great transition time in the Earth's history, there has always been a really small percentage of the population that has actually been involved in the conflict. I mean, look at the American Revolution, 1776 through 1787, when you had this giant country of rabble and farmers that took on the most important military empire in the world, the British Empire, and fought against them. The majority of the population, they were not involved in this conflict. This conflict changed the world. It basically took away the power of the greatest empire that had ever existed, the British Empire, and it democratized war. It democratized war. It changed so much. It changed so much for the elites, and yet only about 3% of the population was involved in this. Same thing with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. In Russia, when they overthrew the czars, and that was such a huge change for a major part of the country, a major part of the world, the Russian Empire, and yet just barely 3% of the population was involved in that whole thing, even though it affected so much and it did so much to change so many things. And the same thing is going on now. It's going to be a small percentage of our population that is going to determine the fate of the world, because we are in a global war right now, where the forces of nationalism, populism are in the midst of overthrowing this cabal, this organization of central banks and ancient bloodlines that have been controlling the nations for so long and have been enslaving us in their various systems. The literal prison system that we have in this country that imprisons more people per capita than any other country in the world. This pharmacological system that is drugging our old people, is holding them hostage at levels that have never existed before in the history of humanity. And the debt slavery system that we are in, that the central banks have promoted for so long. All of these things that are going to be overthrown, that are in the midst of being overthrown right now. And it won't be.
Every industry has been controlled and is corrupt, even the food system. We're eating chemical food. And, people don't realize they're not getting what they need. You know what I mean? Like they might know on the surface, but they don't go any deeper than that.
Yeah, I was in China recently, giving presentations in both in Beijing and Shanghai, and one of the big problems going on in China right now, well, problems for 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 people, for some people, for visitors, basically, is that in China they have a lot of artificial food
Right.
uh, that is being put out there as real food, and part of that is because they have 1 billion people to feed and so forth, so that they have. But it leads to, you have to, whenever you're in China, you have to be careful testing food to make sure that it's actually what it says it is. Like if you go out and you order a steak, you have to actually make sure that it really is what it really says it is, and everything else. Something is a fish, you have to make sure that it actually is what it says it is, because that's a huge thing in China. Artificial food, or food that isn't really what it says it is.
And
That's
we have
really
that here
scary.
too right now, but also the food that does come from China. You've seen the video how they're injecting shrimp with this thing to make them bigger, and like any of the food from China can be contaminated. A few years ago, they were putting plastic particles in peanut butter, dog food, baby formula, and all of that. And somehow chemically it passed inspection. I don't know those details at this exact moment, but people in the US were eating that, or the babies were drinking the formula, dogs eating the food and dying. And so
Wow.
we've had those recalls, but it's not like it just randomly happened. They've been doing that for years. And
Right. And I think the government is trying to address that, and like they always do, uh, blaming some of the producers and going after them and putting them in jail sometimes. So I think they're trying to uh, go after the problem and make it better. And unfortunately, we need to do the same thing here as well. And that's one of the reasons that we're in this war, this global war, because we're trying to overthrow all of these systems that are victimizing us and that are even killing us, even though a lot of these murders are dressed up as suicides or accidents, or gas leaks that just occurred, you know and that's just the way that things are happening right now, and it's terrible. In the Soviet Union, uh, back in the 70s and the 80s, uh, the way that they used to do business is to drag away a family member would have said something against the government, and so they would the secret police would send someone and it would always be at 3 in the morning, 3 in the morning. They would send someone to break in the door and drag away that particular family member in the dead of night, and
right.
that person would never be seen again. And that's how the Soviet Union operated. But people were not supposed to talk about it, that it happened. You were supposed to just say, "Oh, that family member went on vacation," and they never came back. We don't know what happened to them. They just disappeared. And
That
that's the way.
that was before the internet.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Now we have social media to help spread the negative.
Yeah. And you know what? This went on so long in the Soviet Union that Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote a book about this period called Gulag Archipelago, and after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was a huge hit, and everyone had this book. And to this day, Russians, like all Russians, in what used to be the Soviet Union, they all keep uh, a baseball bat, or a baseball bat and something else, another blunt instrument under their bed when they sleep. They all do that. They all have that. And that's an ethnic thing that all Russians do if they don't have guns. You know, and the reason is because Solzhenitsyn wrote in the Gulag Archipelago about this period, the period of Soviet terror, when they were dragging away family members in the middle of the night, never to be seen again. He said, we made a mistake as the Russian people. He says, we made a terrible mistake by retreating into fear. He says, what we should have done is we should have had a baseball bat, a flower vase, something, anything to crash on their heads of the secret police as they would come in the door. Just do that. He said, it doesn't matter if they kill you. He says, it doesn't matter. You're already dead anyway because you're living in fear. He says, you got to do that. You got to crash a flower vase on their heads. He says, make them pay a cost. He says, make them pay a cost for doing what they're doing to you. He says, if you even make them pay a small cost, just one or two of them with their heads caved in so that they don't go home to their families that morning. He says, it will create liberty. It will create, you will overthrow the system. You will show the tyrants that they can't get away with doing this to the Russian people. Right. And Solzhenitsyn, when he said that, he just, it touched something. And so that today it's true. All Russians basically keep baseball bats and other blunt instruments under their beds when they sleep today.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And that's where we are today also.
Yeah. Stand up for yourself.
Yes, exactly. So that's where we are, you know, when we see things like this Epstein suicide that occurred. You know, it's not real. It's not real. You know, the one thing we all know is that it didn't happen the way that the government says it's happened. You know, and if you're an investigator, you just apply these exercises and you'll find out what really happened. You just apply logic and investigative skills and go through it the way that I teach people to, and they'll know what really happened. But it takes some work. It takes some application of your own skills, and you'll see what actually really happened with the Epstein situation.
I've been watching that with great interest because he's like the tip of the iceberg, and I'm thinking like it's the domino effect. All the other bad guys will be caught, and I was kind of hoping it was sooner rather than later. But it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and one quick tip I'll tell people on that situation is that the single group of the greatest investigators, the purest, most honest investigators we have today in the Western world are 8chan analysts, these young kids who are on this board called 8chan and 4chan, who actually do examinations of pictures. And they can tell you, and they'll tell you point by point how it is that a picture is fake, right, how it's put together, where the Photoshop markings are, which are very easy. I actually learned how to distinguish a Photoshop picture from the 8chan investigators. It's very easy to do, but once you learn it, you can do it. You can do it always. It's amazing. So whenever, and in this Epstein situation, the 8chan investigators have actually done an examination of a picture that was released, right, of Epstein's body, and they actually showed that it is a photoshopped picture, and that it is actually a picture that appears to be of the dead. It's not a picture of Epstein. They did comparisons with true pictures of Epstein, and they actually have shown that it appears to resemble much more the dead brother of Hillary Clinton, who died about a month ago.
Yeah, I saw that, and then how they proved it. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and those kids know what they're doing. They are the greatest investigators I have seen in this modern era. It's amazing. They did the same thing with the fake pictures of Osama bin Laden, when what's his name, Obama pretended that he had killed
Shot in
Obama.
the face and said,
Yeah,
sorry, we couldn't take a picture. Oh, and
yeah,
they dumped him overboard. Sorry.
right. But there were pictures that they put out. They did put out pictures of something, and those pictures were immediately examined and shown to be fakes
Yeah.
by the 8chan
Yeah.
investigators.
Yeah.
And it was a phenomenal job. Those guys, there's no better analysts than those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those pictures, and of course, I've been watching it with great interest. It's like it's so exciting to see all this come out. I mean, it's negative stuff coming out, obviously, but it's coming out. It's not in the shadows anymore. And hopefully,
Right.
the mainstream person is going to see this. It's not going to be pretty. They're not going to want to believe it because you couldn't make this up. If we wrote a book or did a movie about the planet Earth right now, and we told everything that's going on in the past even 100 years, you couldn't make that up.
Right.
But we've been living through that. It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and it's going to get crazier because they have everything they need from Epstein to
Right.
prosecute all of his conspiracy co-conspirators. And one of the things that I think the main thing they wanted to accomplish is that they wanted to make it appear that the Allied forces, let's say the white hat forces, they wanted to disappear Epstein out of there, show him to be dead, so that the deep state would stop trying to kill him.
Right.
Because that was the main thing they wanted to accomplish. But at the same time, I think they wanted to send a message to
Right.
Hillary,
Right.
by using the picture of her brother, that they have everything.
Right.
And the reason they do that is because it forces Hillary and the cabal to make more mistakes. And that's what they want because they're going to have the records of those mistakes in their hands as well. And so they need to get that. So it's important for them. And so I think that Epstein is alive and well. I think he's doing very well. And I think they're holding him somewhere where he's continuing to give information and where he's going to be safe and sound and be able to help the forces of good with what they need to do against the cabal and all of their people.
Well, it's very exciting, and I can't wait till it all comes out and it changes. And that's really what I care about is the change. Let's get to that golden age that we've heard about, or the new Earth that we've heard about. Let's bring that on. Where
Exactly.
we're really healthy and we really can work together. And I think that's one of my pet peeves is the deep state is extremely organized. And they really have their strategies in place. But our guys, well, I mean, and this is just in my sphere of influence, there's a lot of competition and fighting and ego still. And the good guys are not so organized. So let's hope those white hats are organized.
Right.
Yeah.
And, that's why and one of the reasons I'm so excited for Empowered Light Holistic Expo, September 6th to the 8th.
Yes.
In Greater Philadelphia area at Expo Center in Oaks, Pennsylvania, is because a lot of these things that we're talking about right now, Sue, they're going to be breaking even bigger than they are right now, right around September 6th through the 8th, at the time that we're at this conference.
We're going to have great conversations, aren't we?
Yeah. And I know that every one of the other speakers, just like me, like Brad Johnson, Jason Quick, Laura Eisenhower, they're going to be addressing these big breaking events with predictions, just like I will, of what further is going to be going on as well, right around that time in September 6th to 8th. And so that makes it even doubly exciting for me because I absolutely know that this stuff is going to be breaking even bigger during that period. And it's going to be really exciting for the people attending.
Very exciting. So let's talk about the expo. It is in Oaks, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. So if you're on the East Coast, make it your business to come for that weekend. It is a fun weekend. And John, Brad Johnson, Laura Eisenhower, and Jason Quipp are featured speakers. They each have presentations and classes that they'll do through the weekend. They're all being live streamed as well if you can't be there. But you can actually mingle with them and go and ask questions. They'll have basically booths where they're, in John's case, they'll be autographing his book for you. But you can go up and ask questions and have conversations. How cool is that?
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's fun. It's so much fun for us as speakers to be spending time with people and doing things with them. And it's just really, that's really why we do it, is to be with the people, spend time with them, to hear their stories as well. Because
stories are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And, you know, I've had people tell me stories that then I'll just go up and use it in my presentation as well with their permission. And it's wild because they get to be there in the audience hearing me tell their story, which lines up with my stories as well. And that's a wild experience. You want to see something surreal. That's really something for people when they're there and they get to get that immediate feedback and that participation with our presentations. It's amazing for them. It's a lot of fun for us too.
So John, you're speaking Saturday, September 7th at 11:30. Para-investigators in the global terrorist threat. All right. So that is Saturday, 11:30, and Sunday, the September 8th is 1 o'clock, and that's Hacking the Matrix, Becoming a Para-Investigator. And that's where we're going to learn some of these, like, techniques, I guess, that you were talking about earlier. So
technique, skills, experience, and how to do these things so that we can decipher these situations, because we're in a situation that has never existed before, where it's like 100% of news and information is false or manipulation or, you know, red herring or just outright false.
Right.
And we need to be able to develop these skills to decipher these situations for ourselves and be able to know what's really going on.
Yeah. Well, I am really looking forward to seeing you again. And of course, hearing your presentations, having these great conversations face to face, because even in the next 2 to 3 weeks, who knows what's going to happen? I'm pretty excited about it. But so for those that are watching this video, you'll be able to see John with his 2 presentations. If you're on the East Coast, make it your business to get there, or you could live stream it and watch it from the comfort of your own home, which is still good. And then we also have a VIP bundle where you can see all the featured speakers at a discounted price. So we're offering that as well. We'd love to see you. And like I said, John will be there mingling, and the other speakers. And of course, there's 100 vendors there that are holistic or health oriented and just plain fun. So they're great people there. It's a really good weekend. My only problem is I'm working and I don't get to fool around as much as I would like. It's all good. It's all good.
So, we'll find some time to fool around, Sue.
Right.
I don't know if that, John. I don't know if that came out right, but
I know
you
what
get the
you're
idea.
saying. We'll find some time to talk and have these deep conversations.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thanks for your time, John. And
thanks so much, Sue.
Okay.
Can't wait. Can't wait. It'll be awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.